Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. You may be seated in any seat. Come on in, ladies and gentlemen, make yourself comfortable. Everyone should have a seat. All right, lawyers and parties, you may be seated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for returning in a timely fashion. I think somebody had a little challenge of being in place by 1:30, but I appreciate you getting here when you could. 1:30 actually means 1:30 Eastern Standard Time. All right. Deputy Gale, let's swear in again since we're broke from lunch, sir.
Right here. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Please state the spelling name for the record.
Samantha Archer Wright, SAMANTHACHER-WRIGHT.
That's right, I just have one or two more questions for you. Directing your attention to the end of the year of 2010, do you recall Mrs. Sneiderman's emotional state at that time?
She was still very sad and tearful.
Do you know whether or not, once you cut back on your nanny duties with the Sneidermans, whether they hired someone else to assist? And if you don't, that's perfectly fine. Did they hire a second nanny, if you know?
Oh, during the time that I cut back?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, ma'am, I have no other questions.
Ms. Hill, I believe this is your witness. You may proceed
Thank you.
if you wish.
Very briefly, Judge.
Ask as many questions as you wish.
Good afternoon, Ms. Archer Wright.
Hi.
I have a couple questions for you. How many times would you say you actually had a conversation with the defendant outside of your nanny responsibilities?
Like when I was not there or while I was there?
Well, either while you were there or not, but anything that was unrelated to, say, the fact that you were serving as a nanny for her and her husband.
Oh, all the time.
And how often did the two of you take walks on Sundays?
We didn't take any walks.
How often did the two of you go out, just the two of you, and have lunch?
Not just the two of us, no.
How often did the two of you just have girl talk?
Anytime I was there.
And how often did she share with you the intimate details of her life?
Intimate, like personal?
Correct.
With her and Rusty, per se?
Yes.
How intimate?
Well, that will be for you to answer.
Maybe something general, going on a vacation or things of the sort.
General, going on vacation, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't discuss the details of their marital relationship, did she?
No.
And she didn't discuss when they were or were not having difficulties in the marriage with you, did she?
No.
And your relationship with her was simply one where you came and you were actually employed by her and her husband, correct?
But we still engage in conversation, and
Absolutely.
it was more than just like I'm there working.
But you were in the house,
Mm-hmm.
so the two of you did talk.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't share intimate details about her life with you.
Not like, yeah, completely intimate.
Right, right. She didn't confide in you, did she, about things that were going on in her marital relationship?
No.
Thank you very much, Ms. Archer Wright.
Mr. Clegg, any recross?
Are you a nurse, ma'am?
Yes.
When did you graduate from nursing school?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
Mr. Clegg?
Can I expect the, let me approach because I don't want to.
Sure. Oh, yeah. Come on up, Lori. All right, I'll overrule the objection. You may ask your question, sir, or as many as you wish.
Ms. Archer-Wright, when did you actually graduate from nursing school?
August 2011.
Okay. And did Andrea Sneiderman attend your nursing school graduation?
She did.
Thank you, ma'am. Nothing further.
Any redirect?
No, Your
All right, lawyers, may Ms. Archer-Wright be released and excused from her subpoena?
No objection from the state.
Certainly, Your Honor.
All right. Have a good day, young lady. Drive safely. Call your next witness, Mr. Clegg,
Your
or
Honor, the
whoever.
defense would call Alyssa Redmond to the witness stand.
All right. Mr. Clegg, is someone retrieving Ms.
Oh,
Redmond?
I don't, I'm not. I will go do so, Your Honor.
Okay.
I thought one of my co-counsel here could assist.
Well, since they didn't move, actually, they weren't honoring your request. Okay. You come on up, young lady. Follow the instructions of Deputy Garrett.
Turn around, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. May go your hand. You may be seated. Should you state and spell your name for the record?
Alyssa Redmond, ALYSSA REDMON.
Redmond, do you know the defendant in this case, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes,
Do you see her here in this courtroom here today?
I do.
Could you point her out for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and tell us what she's wearing?
She's right here. She is wearing a brown cardigan with a striped top.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman.
The record may so reflect.
How is it that you know Mrs. Sneiderman?
I was their nanny.
Okay. And when is it you would have been her nanny, ma'am?
October 2010 to November.
How often during that period of time, well, let me ask you this. When you were the nanny for the Mrs. Sneiderman, was her husband, Rusty Sneiderman, alive?
Yes,
And would you go to their home in Dunwoody to perform whatever task you were required to perform?
yes,
How many times a week would you have been going to the house during that period of time?
twice.
And how many hours a day would you have been working at the house on those two occasions that you would go a week?
3 to 4 hours each day.
Did you have what time typically would you go from when to when?
4 to 7 or 4 to 8.
During that particular time, to your knowledge, was Rusty Sneiderman employed outside of the home?
Not outside of the home.
Was he at the home frequently when you would have been present?
Yes,
Was Mrs. Sneiderman during that particular time employed outside of the home?
yes,
Would there be times when she would be present while you were there as well?
yes.
Typically, do you recall what time Andrea Sneiderman would usually get home during the period of time that you were working as a nanny for the Sneidermans?
5 or 5:30.
And did you then have occasion to see the two of them interact with one another during that period of time up until you would have left?
Yes.
Can you describe the interaction you would have seen between Andrea Sneiderman and Rusty Sneiderman back in October and November of 2010?
I would see them in the home with the children at dinner.
Come a little closer to the microphone,
I
okay?
apologize. I would see them at home at dinner with the kids. They seemed very happy and loved. There was nothing that seemed out of the ordinary.
Did you notice any sort of tension between the two of them?
Never.
Did you notice any sort of fighting between the two of them?
Never.
Did you notice either one of them giving each other the silent treatment?
No.
What typically would be your responsibilities while you were at the household?
My responsibilities were to cook, make lunch for the children the next day, clean up the playrooms, clean up the house, so that they could spend time together and with the children.
So did you do the domestic chores while they spent time with their kids?
Correct.
And with each other?
Yes.
And was that a typical schedule, or was that a typical what you did, was that typical of your time with them as a nanny?
Yes.
At some point, did Mrs. Sneiderman discuss with you the possibility of doing additional work for her beyond being a nanny?
Yes.
Were you given, what were you told that was going to entail?
I would be doing computer work for her more as a consultant after I graduated from college.
Were you in college at that time?
I was.
When were you to graduate?
December 2010.
And did you in fact graduate in 2010 in December?
I did.
Okay. Did Mrs. Sneiderman ever, did you have a scheduled meeting with Mrs. Sneiderman to set up training for the second position that she was going to offer you?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, as to relevance.
Ms. Clegg?
Your Honor, I believe that meeting would have been on November the 17th, and I believe that meeting was subsequently set up for November the 19th.
All right.
The subject of the meeting is not as
I
important
understand.
as the dates.
I overrule the objection. You
Okay.
may go ahead with it.
Okay. Was the date of that scheduled meeting initially for November the 17th, 2010?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall whether that meeting actually went forward at that, let me ask you this, would it have been on the 7th, would it have been on the, what day of the week
It
was
was
that
the
meeting?
Tuesday.
Okay. If Rusty died on the 18th, a Thursday, would that have
In
been
the
the 16th?
Yes.
Okay. Was that meeting canceled?
Yes.
Do you recall what time you would have left the Sneiderman household on that evening?
A typical time, so between 7 and 8.
Okay. Do you recall when the meeting was rescheduled until?
It was rescheduled for the Thursday evening, so November the 18th.
Would that have been November the 18th?
Yes.
Was that the day that Rusty Sneiderman wound up being shot and killed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have any conversation with Mrs. Sneiderman on the 16th as to why she needed to cancel the meeting on that day?
Yes.
What did she tell you, ma'am?
Objection, Your Honor.
What's the
Relevance.
objection?
Relevance.
Okay. That's fine, Judge.
And it's also hearsay.
I understand. I gotta sustain that objection at this time. Go ahead.
Okay. How did you find out that Rusty Sneiderman had been shot?
I received a phone call from a woman telling me that there had
Objection, Your
been,
Honor, as to the hearsay.
Maybe you said you received a phone call from a woman.
yes.
Was that woman Mrs. Snyderman?
No, it was
All
not.
right, I sustain that objection.
Did you at some point find out that he had been shot?
Yes.
Did you have further contact with them, or did you work further for them as a nanny after that particular date?
I did not.
Okay. Did you have occasion yourself to go over to their house?
I did not.
Okay. You said something about October was when you were initially hired. Do you recall, was it early October, late October, or when?
I believe it was early October.
Okay. Did you ever have occasion to have contact with Rusty about Star voicemail?
Yes.
Okay. And to your knowledge, was Andrea familiar with the details of Star voicemail? And if you know, great. If you don't.
I do not know.
Let me just look at my notes.
Oh, you may.
Yeah.
Take your time.
Are you currently living in the Atlanta area, ma'am?
I am not.
Okay. And going back again to the period of time that you would have spent with Mr. and Mrs. Sneiderman, was there anything at all out of the ordinary that you observed about their relationship?
Not at all.
Good enough, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Whose witness is this?
It's
Ms.
my
Hill?
witness, Your Honor. I have no questions.
All right.
Thank you.
Lawyers, may Ms. Redmond be released and excused from her subpoena? Mr. Clegg?
Yes, Your Honor. Oh.
Ms. I'm sorry. You said, wait a minute. Are you ready? Can she go? Ms. Clegg? Is that yes?
Yes, yes, she
Okay.
can go, Judge.
No
Ms. Hill?
objection from the state.
Thank you, young lady. Have a good day. Have a safe trip. Call your next witness. Mr. Who's doing the witness?
Call Mara Baran, please.
All right.
Your Honor. I will go get her.
All right. You can come on up, young lady. Follow the instructions of the deputy.
You may raise your hand. You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Mara Baran. M-A-R-A is the first name. B is in boy. A-R. A-N is in Nancy. D-I-A-R-A-N.
Ms. Petrie, she's with you.
Thank you. So Baran Diaron is spelled the regular way.
The regular way, that's right.
Ma'am,
No
do you
deviation.
know Andrea Sneiderman?
I do.
How do you know her, please, ma'am?
I met Andrea in 2009 at my parents' home in Lake Oconee.
Okay. And what were the circumstances of your meeting Mrs. Sneiderman, please?
They came over, Rusty and Andrea came over. I actually met Rusty initially. I was walking out the door, he was walking in.
And again, this was not your home, this was your
That's
parents'
correct.
home?
That's right.
What are your parents' names, please?
It's my stepmother, Bonnie Van Fleet, and my father is Jerry Joseph.
Okay. And please tell us the circumstances upon first meeting Rusty and Andrea. And if you met them one and then the other, split it up.
Like I said, I met Rusty initially, and we had a little bit of small talk. I think that my parents had some communication with Rusty and Andrea about my husband and myself and our kids, because our kids are the same age as Rusty and Andrea's. So we made a little bit of small talk, and then Andrea pulled in on the boat. She was driving the boat, and she had her son Ian sitting on the boat as well. So, we just hit it off right away.
Do you recall what part, I think you said the summer of 2009?
Yes. It might have been May,
Okay.
perhaps June.
I don't know what, to me, summer, even though not technically, summer is sort of Memorial Day to Labor Day, and I'm not sure that that is what the scientists say, but is it that period of time that
Basically.
you're talking about? Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, please, Mrs. Baran Diaron, I'm not going to triple.
You could say Miss B.
How often, prior to the late fall of 2010, how many times do you think that you yourself had the occasion to be with and observe Mrs. Sneiderman with or without Rusty?
They were, it was mostly together and with the kids. It was practically every weekend. If I think about it over the course of time, I would say maybe 20 to 30 times.
And just to be sure, am I correct in my belief that the families would not, neither your family nor her family would have been out on the boats as much during the wintertime, during school time?
That's correct. That's a fair statement.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, if you will, please, madam, how you interacted with Rusty and Andrea during that time.
Excuse me, what time are we talking about now? We still in
The
2000?
Summer
we still
of
in
2009, summer of 2010, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. It was really the typical things we always did. They would come over to my father's home, and it was almost like, I think, their home away from home. We would get on the boats. Sometimes initially we would text ahead of time if we were going to be there. Are you going to be at the lake this weekend? And coordinate things that way. And sometimes my husband and I would just jump on the boat and head over to their house without even notifying them.
Okay.
But yeah, we spent a lot of time on the boat, and we had a pool, so they came over to our place quite a bit.
Okay. They poached your poop.
They did.
Okay.
It's okay.
Now, can you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you observed, not what your opinion is, not what your inner thoughts were, but what you actually observed about the interaction of Mrs. Sneiderman, Andrea Sneiderman, and Rusty? What you yourself saw. How did they appear to be interacting with each other?
Your Honor, I object to.
What's the objection?
I object to the question based on relevance if we're still talking about the 09 timeframe.
I'm going to sustain the objection unless you give me a time frame, Mr. Petrie.
Okay, for the summer of 2009 and the summer of 2010, those are really the times that you were with them, correct?
Mm-hmm. That would be right. And I would say,
Okay, just don't answer the question.
Go ahead and answer the question. That's the time frame, 2009 and 2010.
Yes, sir. During the summer of each.
Correct.
That's fine.
Not at the lake at Christmas.
no. But occasionally. I would, initially meeting them, They're a couple like all the other couples that we hang out with.
Did you understand his question?
About the relationship,
What you observed?
what I observed.
That's what he wants you to answer.
Okay, I observed a loving relationship where am I along the right lines? That, they would.
Answer the question as best you can, and if there's an objection, stop, or if the judge tells you to stop,
Okay.
stop. But you're doing fine until somebody jumps up or tells you to stop.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm going down the right road. It was a loving relationship. Their kids were top priority for them, and they interacted beautifully together in the sense that they knew each other well, and there was a mutual respect there, and you could see that. And just overall, they were comfortable people to be around, very down to earth, very welcoming, very warm. And that was transparent in both of their personalities, which, again, made them so likable.
Now, did you, during the time that you spent with them during the summer of 2009, summer of 2010, did you ever observe any argumentative behavior one towards the other? And by that, it could be argumentative behavior could be either a vocal argument or it could be what most men call a silent treatment that we get sometimes. Did you ever witness either of those?
I did not witness either of those.
Did you actually witness Mrs. Sneiderman and Rusty do stuff together?
Absolutely.
What types of things did you see them do?
They would take care of their kids mutually. Like if one was struggling, if one was crying, the other one would jump right in. They worked hand in hand. I almost feel like it was a real partnership in a way. And then the boat. Rusty loved being on the boat above all else. And so we spent a lot of time on the boat. They were on the boat together. We'd go to their.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I have to object to the narrative. I think the question has been answered. It was asked, it was answered, and now the witness is just going on a narrative, and I object to the narrative.
Yes, sir, Mr. Beecher.
I disagree, Your Honor, on this. She is giving examples. I asked her what type of conduct, what type of interaction she saw, and I believe the witness is allowed to explain that they weren't just poaching at the pool, they were on the boat, they were doing other things as well. I believe that is...
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Beecher. A witness is allowed to answer the question and explain. I agree. The witness is allowed to answer the question and explain the question.
Right.
And the answer, I should say.
And I don't believe this was a yes or no. I was asking her to give some examples, and I believe that's what she was attempting to do, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes. I heard the objection as far as she had answered at least the question that you had propounded. You may ask another one, but I would sustain that objection as far as it did. At least in my ears, it was going into, the objection was narrative.
Okay.
But you may ask more questions. I'm not limited. Ask
I'll be
whatever you
happy
want
to,
to
Your
ask.
Honor. Did you observe them do anything else?
Most of the time we were with the kids, I know that very often when we would just jump on the boat and go and see if they were there, they would be on their dock together. And I'd say, well, where are the kids? And they'd hold up, the little, the baby monitor. Because the kids were napping inside. So they were just hanging out on the dock together.
Did
Yeah.
you... Oh, please, I'm
Nope.
sorry to interrupt you.
You're
Well,
fine.
I will interrupt you then. Did you and your husband ever have the opportunity, without kids, to go anywhere or do anything with Rusty and Andrew?
Think about that one. No. We
Always-
were always with kids.
Family-type activity?
Family time activities. They had invited us a couple times. I think they went to a rodeo once, and they came over with their crazy hats on and said, "Do you want to come with us?" And we just didn't have the opportunity to do so.
Okay.
So the invitation was there, but never followed through.
Now, you're aware that Rusty was killed on November 18, 2010.
That's right.
Can you tell us, to the best of your recollection, how long before Rusty was killed was it the last time that you saw him, with or without Andrew?
The last time I believe I saw him was at the end of July and of 2010. Yes.
Where did you see him?
We were at, they came over to my parents' home. We personally had a lot of relatives that were over, that were from out of state. And so there were a lot of pictures taken. There was a big group of people there.
Okay. And to the best of your recollection, that was the last time you saw Rusty with or without Andrea, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe that prior to Rusty's death, you saw Andrea between that late July incident and his death? If you could recall.
No, I do not believe I saw Andrea or Rusty.
At the July gathering,
I think it was July 30th.
okay, did you take, or were you present when a picture was taken of their family?
Yes, I was.
Okay. What number? Who's calling? 45. 45. And this is yours, right?
Mr. Clegg at 44.
Okay, that's fine.
He's at 45. Mr. Clegg at 44. This is 45.
This is 45.
I object to 45, Judge, on the grounds of relevance.
Ms. Petrie, why is this relevant?
Yes, sir, Your Honor, I believe this is relevant. This is a photograph that will be identified as a photograph of Mrs. Sneiderman and her husband taken at the end of July 2010, which is a photographic visual display of the relationship at that time.
Would you, Mr. Deputy, if y'all could assist me, would you secure that phone for disrupting my courtroom? I apologize, Mr. Petrie. Did you
That's
finish
fine.
what you were saying?
Yes, John, that this photograph, I believe, will be identified by the witness as being a photograph that was taken at her parents' home in late July 2010, and for whatever value the jury wishes to give it, it is a pictorial representation of the relationship between Andrea Sneiderman and Rusty Sneiderman on that day.
In July of 2010?
July of 2010, Your Honor.
All right. Ms. Hill,
Judge, relevance is the only.
I'm going to sustain the objection at this time. All right, Ms. Hill, is this your witness?
It is, Judge, and I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Petrie or Ms. Hill, any objection to Ms. Baradarian?
Close enough.
All right, being released from
It
the
works.
subpoena.
No objection, Your
Any
Honor.
objection?
None.
Thank you for coming, young
Thank
lady.
you.
Have a good day. Drive safely. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, prior to calling the next witness, may I interpose an objection to the court's last ruling?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah.
Failure to allow us to introduce that evidence.
Noted. Yes, sir. Did you want to put something else on the record? Yes.
No, sir.
Okay, we're good.
It is relevant. No, I'm sorry.
No, I understand.
Moving something out of my chair.
Oh, no problem. Call your next witness, please. Mr. Petrie or Mr. Morgan?
Okay.
The Fiscal College Jury, Joseph, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I'll go get it.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen. You come on up, sir. Follow the instructions of the deputy.
Raise your hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony you shall give this court should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I know your name. You may be seated. Please state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Jerry Joseph. That's Joseph.
And if you would, please spell Jerry, because there are different spellings.
Jerry.
And Mr. Joseph, where do you reside, sir?
In Eatonton, Georgia.
And who do you live there with?
Pardon me?
Who do you live there with? Who do you?
I live there with my wife,
And her name is, please.
Bonnie Van Fleet.
Do you know the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman, in this case?
I do.
Do you recognize her in the courtroom this afternoon?
I do.
And will you please point him out for the judge and the jury, Mr. Joseph?
Right there.
And what is she wearing, please?
Pardon?
What is she wearing? Color sweater.
It looks like a beige thing with a black
Beige thing.
shirt.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph.
All right.
Your Honor, with the beige thing, may I ask the court to say he's
Yes, sir.
identified the
The record may reflect he's identified the defendant. Yes, sir. You may
Thank you,
continue.
Mr. Joseph. And how do you know Andrea, sir?
I met Andrea at the lake.
And which lake is that?
That's Lake Oconee in Eatonton.
And do you recall about when that was.
I believe it was 2008 because she was very pregnant with her son.
Okay. And did you also meet her husband, Rusty?
Certainly.
Okay. Did you meet them together or separately, or do you recall?
I met them together.
Okay. And did you know them as a couple up until November 18th, 2010?
I did.
Did you do anything, you and your wife, as a couple with the Sneidermans?
Yes, we had frequent weekends when the Sneidermans would come out. My grandchildren are of a similar age as her children.
Of their children.
And they happen to get along very well. So either my kids went to their house or they came to ours.
And when you say kids, let's be specific.
My grandchildren.
Your grandchildren would play with their children.
Right.
Okay. Did you and your wife do anything as a couple with Rusty and Andrea?
Yes, we did.
And what
Yeah,
types of things were that? Sir?
We had dinners, we had lunches. Andrea would come over quite often with the children and walk into our house and make lunch, and sometimes for all of us. I mean, it was just like type things.
And to the best of your ability, during the pleasant months, say May through October, how often do you believe you saw the Sneidermans?
I'm sorry, Judge, if
I didn't hear you.
if I could just get the year. You said May through October.
Oh, okay. Mr. Morgan, if you
From
could.
2008 until Mr. Sneiderman's death.
I saw them probably every other weekend at least, during the good months.
And did that include 2010?
Yeah.
And were you able to observe their relationship before 2010 as well?
Certainly.
Okay. And how would you describe that relationship, Mr. Joseph?
Well, I think the best description would be that it was a very good partnership. They shared the care of the children. They shared doing jobs around the house and things of that nature, and just seemed like a very good relationship.
Now, the Sneidermans would be, no offense, a generation the same age as your children, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And your relationship was still...
Your Honor, I'm objecting to the leading nature of the questions.
I'm going to sustain that.
I'll rephrase the question.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Did you notice any difference in your observations between their relationship from 2008, 2009, and 2010?
Not really. No. It was pretty even relationship that I saw.
Okay. Did you notice any tension in their marriage in 2010?
Well, I'm sure there was tension. I noticed tension in my own marriage. I've been married for a long time.
It's part of the definition of marriage, right?
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Did you notice any unusual tension from 2008, 2009, and 2010?
No, sir.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Is this your witness, Ms. Hill? Any questions?
It is, Judge. No questions. Thank you, Mr. Justice.
Lawyers, may Mr. Joseph be released and excuse Mr. Pena?
Yes, Your Honor.
No objection conceded.
Thank you for coming, sir. Have a good day. Drive safe. Call your next witness.
Defense calls
You're welcome.
Andy.
And who?
I'm sorry, Andy Litman.
All right.
E-M-A-N.
Thank you. You come on up, sir. Follow the instructions of the deputy, Deputy Garrett.
Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you have in this court should be the truth, whole truth, without but the truth, that you got?
Yes.
May I go with you? state and spell your name for the record.
Andy Litman, A-N-D-Y, or Andrew, A-N-D-R-E-W, Litman, L-I-P-M-A-N.
And Mr. Litman, where do you reside, sir?
I live in Norcross, Georgia.
And do you know the defendant in this case, Andrea Sneiderman?
I do.
Do you recognize her in the courtroom today?
I do.
And what is Andrea wearing, sir?
Looks like, I'm not good with colors, but brown, a brownish, there's some orange on there, a brown sweater.
Okay. Your Honor, please let the record reflect that he has pointed out the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman.
Yes, the record may reflect that he's identified
Everybody's
Mr. Sneiderman in a brown sweater.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Litman, how do you know Andrea?
I became friends with Andrea and Rusty at a Thanksgiving party. It was it was a lunch. It was back in 2008, November 2008. Became friends with her and her husband, and my wife and I became couples friends with them. And that's kind of how we got to know each other.
Did you know either Rusty or Andrea prior to 2008?
I did not.
Okay. And were you already married at the time?
I was.
Okay. And where did this dinner take place?
This was at Tammy Parker's house, Steve and Tammy Parker, and we just had children the same age, so we had a lot in common. And Rusty and I were both baseball fans, so we got to talk a lot about that. So we just had a lot in common, so it was just very easy to get to know each other.
Okay. And did you and your wife's name is?
Andrea.
Andrea as well?
Yes.
And did you and Andrea and Rusty and Andrea do things as a couple together?
We did.
And what types of things did y'all do?
We went to Braves games, like Gwinnett Braves. We would just have dinner. We saw movies together. We went to the lake house together, and we did a lot of fun little get-togethers.
How frequently would you say you observed Rusty and Andrea as a couple?
I'd say pretty often. I'd say at least every week, maybe 2 weeks. Just depends a lot. Sometimes one of us would go to dinner with the other, or one couple would go to dinner at somebody else's house. So I would say quite often, at least every couple of weeks.
And that was from the time you met until Rusty's death?
That's correct.
Okay. How would you describe their relationship, your observations?
Happy. I mean, they were great together. They made each other laugh. It was easy to be around them.
Okay. And did you notice any change in the relationship from 2008, 2009 to 2010?
I really didn't. They always seemed happy to me.
Okay. Were you present at a birthday party for Sophia at the lake on September 5th, 2010?
We were. I was. My wife and I were.
Okay.
And my children.
Did you have a chance to observe Rusty and Andrea during that time?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice any tension or anything unusual about their relationship then?
No, nothing unusual. They seemed pretty happy.
I apologize. What number are we on? Out in the next one. 46.
Your Honor, the state's going to have an objection to defense 46, irrelevance.
Your Honor, approach.
Sure, come on up, lawyers.
May I approach you?
Yes, sir, you may approach.
Mr. Litman, without going into the contents of the photograph, do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when that photograph was taken?
It was, I don't remember the exact year. It's Sophia's birthday.
I said, you say you don't remember the exact year?
Was it the,
I'm going to object, Your Honor, and then renew the state's objection to relevance.
Well, for right now, he hadn't moved it into evidence yet, but I understand. Just hold on to it.
All right.
You may lay your foundation.
all right, do you remember how many birthday parties that you went to for Sophia?
I would say 2 or 3. I only went to one on the lake because I recognize this is the lake from this picture.
Okay, so you were only at one party at the lake?
Right.
Okay. And do you remember what year that was?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm thinking it was in 2008.
2008?
I'm sorry, not 2008. I'm sorry, 2010. I'm just trying to think. It was I believe it was right after my birthday. I think it was around September 5th.
Of 2010?
Of 2010, right.
Okay. And do you recognize the people in that photograph?
I do. I recognize. You want me to say who I recognize in the picture?
Just right now, do you recognize the
Yes.
persons?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, at this time we move for admission of state's exhibit featuring that defense exhibit 46.
Any objection?
The state's objection is to relevance, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to override objection since he indicates, based on his testimony, he believes it was in the year 2010 at a birthday event. So for the purpose of that, Mr. Morgan, I'm going to let it in for right now.
Okay. May I publish to the jury?
You may.
Mr. Litman, do you identify the boat driver with the gold wedding band on it?
I do.
And who is that? Please?
That's Rusty Sneiderman.
Okay. And did you see him that day?
I did.
And did you see Andrea that day?
I did.
Was there anything that you observed unusual about the two of them as a couple that day?
No, it was actually quite the same. Quite the usual. He would drive the boat, happy-go-lucky. That's kind of how he always was. And she would make the cake or, just do things around the house, get things done.
So let me ask you, was it during these parties at the lake, whose responsibility was it to drive the boat?
It was usually Rusty. It was always, Rusty loved to drive the boat.
And whose responsibility was it to take care of the children and prepare the food?
So that would be Andrea.
Okay. And where was this food prepared?
In the house, in the lake house.
Did you see Rusty and Andrea after September 5th, 2010?
Yes.
And where did you see them?
I'm sure a few times, but I know definitely at our charity softball tournament.
Let me interrupt you there. You say, what type of charity softball tournament?
It's called Wish for Wendy.
Your Honor, the relevance.
Mr. Morgan, why is that relevant?
I'm just laying the foundation as to when he observed them, Judge.
You can ask that question. I'm going to sustain that objection. Next question.
Where did you observe them?
At the softball event, which was at Alpharetta's North Park.
Okay. And were Andrea and Rusty at the softball event?
Yes.
What was their purpose for being there?
Andrea was a volunteer for the event, and Rusty was on our team. He was also our sponsorship chairman. I started the event, so Rusty was on our committee.
Did you observe anything unusual about them at that time?
No, they were just happy as usual. I mean, Andrea actually came and watched Rusty play his game, our 2 games that we played.
Did you see them after that event? And do you recall what date that was?
I don't recall the date. We, as I said, we usually saw each other 1 or every 2 weeks, but I believe they left after that. They had I believe a cruise, or it was around that time. So no, I don't remember if we did actually see each other. I know Rusty and I talked via email. That's about it.
Okay. After that charity event, did you get the chance to see them as a couple again before Rusty was killed?
No, I don't believe so.
No further questions, Judge.
Ms. Cross, this is your witness. You may cross-examine if you wish.
It is, Your Honor. I have no questions for Mr. Whitman.
All right. Lawyers, may this witness be released and excuse Ms. subpoena. Ms. Morgan.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Green Cross.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Litman, you're free to go. Have a good day. Drive safely. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would call Mr. Ben Nadler to the witness stand.
All right. Mr. Clegg, is someone,
Oh,
that
that's
Mr.
outside,
James,
Your Honor, I'm sorry.
Mr. James came in.
So I was expecting Mr. James to help us out, but apparently he couldn't be bothered. So.
You can come on up, sir.
Turn around, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear in front of the testimony you shall give this court, to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. You may lower your hand, may be seated.
Thank you.
Please state and spell your name for the record.
Okay. My name is Ben Nadler, Nadler.
Mr. Nadler, do you know the defendant in this case, Mrs. Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes, I do.
And do you see her in the courtroom here today?
Yes, she's sitting over here.
Can you describe what she is wearing for purposes of the record?
A light brown sweater top and a black and blue blouse underneath.
Your Honor, may the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Andrea Sneiderman?
Yes, the record may so reflect.
Do you know, or how is it that you know Andrea Sneiderman, sir?
We first met both her and Rusty through our synagogue.
And when would that have been, sir?
It'd be February of 2010.
Okay. And did you have occasion to come into contact with Andrea and Rusty while they were at the synagogue?
Yes.
Okay. How often do you recall seeing them at the synagogue during the course of the year of 2010, sir?
I'd say maybe on average about once a month.
Okay. Did you have an opportunity to observe the two of them together on those occasions when you would see them at the synagogue?
Yes, I did.
Can you share your observations as to how they interacted with one another and how they seemed to get along with one another?
Certainly, yes. They almost always seem to be smiling, to be happy, laughing with each other. On occasion, I would see them holding hands.
Did you ever see them quarrel or spat with one another?
No, sir.
Did you ever notice or observe any sort of tension between the two of them?
No.
Did you ever notice them giving each other the silent treatment?
No.
Okay. Did you have occasion to see Mrs. Sneiderman approximately 2 weeks before the death of her husband?
Yes. In fact, I know that it was definitely, it was the first Saturday of November.
Of the year 2010?
Yes.
Where is it you would have seen her at that time?
So that was also at the synagogue. And what happened was she came in and she was there to pick up their daughter from the religious school. It was a Saturday morning. And I happened to have noticed that she was wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt. And so I made a joke. I said, well, what are you doing coming to synagogue in, sweats? And what she told me was that she was there.
Your Honor, to hearsay.
It's from Mrs. Sneiderman, Your Honor, and it goes to the nature of her relationship with her husband.
And it would be self-serving unless it...
Come up for a minute, lawyers, please.
Jeff Hullinger along with B.J. Pak, the defense attorney. As we are looking at the lawyers in front of Judge Adams right now, we have seen a collection of friends of the Sneidermans, and all have tried to point a very normal kind of marital relationship between Rusty and Andrea prior to the murder. Are you surprised by that they would trot out this number of witnesses?
Well, not really, because I think that Ms. Citron's testimony is very harmful to the defense, and I think they're trying to provide quantity over quality in terms of witnesses.
All right, back into the courtroom.
Did you have a conversation with Andrea Sneiderman at that time, sir?
Yes.
What was the subject of that conversation?
So first she started talking about what she was doing that day, which was that...
We don't need to go in specifically to what she was doing. Was there at some point a conversation where she spoke about her husband?
Yes.
Could you tell us what she said about her husband back on, was it November the 6th?
Whatever that first Saturday.
First Saturday of November of 2010. Mm-hmm. What did she say about her husband at that time, sir?
She was talking about how Rusty is very good friends with Andy Litman, and how he was very excited to be involved with this Wish for Wendy. It's a charity softball tournament. And she was very excited to be telling me about how well it was going and how successful it was. And she was saying it with, you could really hear this pride in her voice in talking about her husband, that he's such a good fundraiser, and he's so good at networking, and he's been able to pull together a lot of great funds for this particular event. And she was very excited about it. And there were, you could, as she was talking about him, you could see the smile on her face was getting bigger, and there was like this little sparkle in her eye as she was talking about him, and you could just really hear the pride in her voice.
How long would you estimate that particular conversation went on for, sir?
Probably about 5 minutes or so.
Okay. Did you have occasion to see either she or her husband again prior to the death of Rusty Sneiderman?
No.
Thank you very much, sir. Nothing further.
All right.
Ms. Green-Cross, you may cross-examine if you wish.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Nadler,
Yes.
I understood your testimony to be that your interaction with the Sneidermans was about once a month in the months leading up to Rusty's murder.
Right.
You saw them at the synagogue.
And one other place as well.
What was that?
So occasionally at the preschool that both of our kids went to at the time.
Okay, so you weren't close personal friends. You wouldn't characterize your relationship that way, would you?
No.
You didn't call him on the phone?
No.
Ms. Sneiderman didn't confide in you about anything?
No.
Mr. Sneiderman didn't confide in you about anything?
No.
You certainly weren't with him on a day-to-day basis in any kind of, any stretch of what your testimony is that right?
That's right.
Okay, so your testimony was in those handful of times that you saw them in the months leading up to Rusty's murder, they appeared happy to you as far as you could tell?
Yes.
Okay. This November 6th conversation you had with the defendant, when her eyes sparkled, that was your testimony, right? Her eyes sparkled?
Yes.
All right. Did she tell you, while her eyes were sparkling, about her relationship with her boss, Hemi Newman?
No.
That name didn't come up?
No.
Okay. Did she tell you in that November 6th conversation that she had betrayed Rusty?
No.
She didn't tell you anything like that?
No.
And you wouldn't expect her to tell you anything like that, given your relationship, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nadler. I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Yes, I have no questions of Mr. Nadler. May he be excused, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Cross?
No, Your Honor.
Yes, sir, you're free to go. Have a good day. Drive safely.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Call your next witness.
Oh, Jeffrey Moss, Your Honor, I'll get it myself.
All right. You can come on in, Mr. Joseph. You come on in. You want to come in? Come on in, Mr. Joseph.